Hi, Raina. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too, Abby.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Today is Friday. This is the first conversation that we're having with you in the fall. And for those of you who don't know Raina or Sam or myself, I'm Abby Nydam, the founder and CEO of SAM, the support platform for women. Raina Gandhi joins me here today. She's one of our amazing executive coaches, career experts on the platform. And we're here today to talk about a very important life event that Raina has just gone through, that many women are currently going through as well or facing in the year to come. And that topic is preparing your senior for college. So Raina, despite all of her amazing, in addition to, I should say, all of her amazing accomplishments as an executive, as a female executive turned coach, she's also raised two amazing children, and one of which she just dropped off at college just a few weeks back. So, we're going to have a little chat here today. Rena's going to share a little bit about her experience and how she's turning that experience into a support session offering for other women available on SAM. Okay, Rena, let's jump in. My first question is, you just did the drop off a few weeks ago. Big moment. Set the stage for us, and think back a little bit to, was there a particular moment from that day that changed how you think about senior year for both a mom yourself or other women and their teenager?
Yeah. So first of all, Abby, thanks for having me. This is something I've just, as I told you earlier, this is something I'm very excited to talk about. I have two daughters. One's 21, one's 18. So this was my younger one that I was dropping off. And we got to the hotel the night before because her drop off time was 8 a.m. and her school's about 6 hours away. So we moved her in the morning. We spent the whole day together. We met her roommate, of course, and her family. We went to grab lunch. And it was lovely. It was such a beautiful day. It was a perfect day to move in. The real moment came when we were outside of her stadium for all the new students to be welcomed. So they had a different setup. Instead of dropping her off at the dorm, we then had parents and students, we all had a big event, and then we were to leave our children, say our goodbyes, and we were going to go into the stadium, but the students were going to go into the stadium first. And so there was a lot of clapping and a lot of yay for all the students, and then the parents kind of went in a different section. And all the rah-rahs and all the energy. It was fantastic. And then they had this whole program for us. All the students were sitting together, the first years, and the parents were sitting separately but together. And when it was done, it was done. So when we walked out, we left and we walked to the car. And I was like, hmm, I'm not gonna see her tomorrow. We're gonna spend the night at the hotel. I'm not gonna see her tomorrow. I know I said goodbye, and but we didn't get to sit together. And well, I'm not gonna see her now until fall break. And then that was it. And she was very ready. This is my baby, so the youngest of our family, and she had grown up so much in the 4 years of high school. So she was ready, confident, excited, and we'd had so many conversations about college life, and she'd seen her sister go through it. Uh, so she kind of knew what to expect. But for me, I was like, wait, it's one thing to intellectually understand it, and it's one thing in that moment when you're experiencing it and you know that it's going to be a minute since you see her again, right? And we were together all the time before she left.
Mm.
So that was a little bit what hit me when I was going back to the car was, again, I knew this was coming in theory, but I mean, of course I did, but actually experiencing it was very different. For the first time, I it truly sank in that I was going back home for the first time in 21 years without a child living with me, right?
Wow.
21 years of
Long
going
time.
home now and not having a child. It's one thing to go on vacation, it's one thing to go for work, but it's one thing to know that you're going home and now your children are at the stage where they are only going to come home once in a while, like when they have breaks and all the things. And so that was that was the moment where I thought, okay, this is epic. This is a life-changing moment for me. And I also understood that the dynamic of our family was not going to be the same. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Anyone who's had children coming up to this stage knows that there's a joy in each stage of their lives, right? So very excited that I have two grown adults, but it's a huge, huge shift. And that I think was my big moment of, okay, things are going to change. I've prepared her. She's good to go. But did I really prepare myself? Because I was so busy preparing, thinking about what her needs were and all of that. So that all of that was going through my head. And there was a sense of grief, but not in a sad way. It was more of a things are going to change way.
Yeah. And let's pick apart, let's dig into that preparation a little bit more because you've gone through this twice now, right? So you have two very different, kids to compare, two very different experiences. So you've prepared them emotionally and academically and logistically for these big moments. How have you done that? And how have you also prepared for prepared yourself? And maybe that's thinking about something you wished you would have prepared for a little bit more from your own perspective.
Yeah. Um, I've always been a bit of a hands-off parent, so I now you can check your child's grades online. I've never done that. I have high achieving kids, so I'd never really felt the need. They put enough pressure on themselves to do what they need to do to get where they had the goals to go. And my daughter, both the girls are organized. So she was definitely on top of all the spreadsheets, whether it was applying to college or when she was color coding her spreadsheets for the apple does not fall far from the tree. When she was color coding her spreadsheets for what she had to take, what she had to buy for her dorm, all of those things, right? So she got all her paperwork in time. So I didn't really have to manage much of that process. She led that change and those logistical things kind of on her own. Um, and that was good because this was going to teach her how to be adulting on her own, which she just is not used to yet, right? But the bigger thing I think that worked, that was really good for me, was acknowledging that this was her senior year, not my senior year. I would always say to the girls, "Hey, I've studied for the SATs. I've done this. I've done it. This is your job. You go do what you need to do. You need something from me, let me know, but you've got to lead this." But this was different because I had to tell myself it wasn't like in that joking kind of like, well, it's your turn now. It was more like, it's your turn now. Like, this is not about me anymore. This is about you. And I made this very conscious decision early on to look at it as a new beginning as opposed to a series of lasts, because I think it's very natural. Oh, it's your last first day of school. It's your last this and your last that. But there's so many events your senior year, especially the second half of senior year, that's leading up to graduation, that you're marking all these milestones. And I kept thinking back to my own senior year and how I would have felt if my mom had cried or gotten really sad every time I reached a milestone, right? If she had made every big moment about her sadness, then and instead of my excitement, then I'd have to carry some of that grief along with me.
Mhm.
And that grief would be alongside my own anticipation and my own needs. So I didn't really have the right to hand my emotions to my daughters. And it was not their challenge to solve, right? Their situation to solve. So I was very cognizant, was very aware of noticing her joy more than my own, like, oh, this is the last time. I smiled a lot more. I was very excited. She was growing, and it was pretty natural for me. Again, I'm not typically that way to be sad and very like making it about me, but at the same time, it's really hard not to because it's her senior year, but it is very much impacting our family dynamic, right? So I tried to keep track of, like, in my brain, I kept thinking, okay, this is what she's stepping into. It's not what she's stepping away from. And I think that mindset really, really helped. That perspective helped her, and her senior year didn't become, anything about, I mean, it is, of course, again, about the family and all of that, but I stopped standing with both feet in the past and really started walking, you could say, at least a little into the future with her. So focusing that way. Um, my guidance around that really would be, you're going to feel a lot during their senior year, and that's okay. And it's not that I didn't wake up in disbelief at times. I definitely did. And I kind of, every mom goes through this where she's like, I was just packing her preschool lunches. She was just, right?
Right.
She was just saying, bye, mom, you can go, right? Like, I remember in preschool when the first day I dropped her off, she was 2 years old. She did 2 days a week. And the first day she was like, you can go now, mom. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. I guess I can go now. But all of that is very natural for it to come back to you. But, um, it's also alongside that is starting things anew. And there's a lot of joy in that too. And you don't want to miss that. So I just tried to stay in that state of like pride, and not only, of course, sentimental, but not just sentimental, pride too. And then let her see, and let them both see really my joy and my pride over my sadness or my fear. Um, in terms of what I would do differently, I think that, as I mentioned, I am a little hands off, and both the girls are very different. And my older one was very clear about where she wanted to go and what she wanted to do and what she wanted to study and what she was going to major in, and where the schools were that she would want to go to. My younger one didn't really understand that early on. It's not that we didn't visit a lot of schools, but she liked pockets of different things and she kept changing her mind. And that's totally normal, like completely normal. I don't think that she had the best approach to her college applications. It was more of a, let me see how many I have time to apply to, and let me see where I get in. Um, and I wish that I had guided her a little bit more. First of all, it gets very expensive the more colleges that you apply to. And second of all, it's what I've learned in this process now. It's not just who who's applying and where the child wants to go, where the student wants to go, but it's also about where the school thinks it's going to be a good fit, right? And a lot of the schools that she'd never visited just kind of was adding to her list just in case she gets in and she wants to go and visit. They didn't accept her because they figured out pretty quickly that that was
Mm.
not the right fit for her.
Mm.
So but it took me after this process. I wish that I had talked to her a little bit about this before she had applied. And I kind of just was very hands off, but I think there's a balance. And I don't think I quite hit that balance. I think I was a little bit, with all the logistics and all of that, I think I could have been a little bit more involved.
So to that, building on that, you have a new product on Sam, a support session called Senior Year Success. So you mentioned what you might have been able to do a little bit differently, but was there any moment in this journey in the last year for you that you were you were missing a resource or a tool or a gap? This is not something that people really talk about, how to navigate this last year of a child's, being at home. So yeah, talk more about that, and if you really saw any glaring gaps which led you to create this new product.
So, having gone through this twice, what I've realized is every family manages this process very differently. And some parents were over involved and some parents weren't involved enough. But one thing we did not do is we did not talk about it, like you said, because it was a stressful enough time. And honestly, the girls and their friends weren't talking about it nonstop either. They kind of needed a break from that, right? They were dealing with it at home in terms of having to apply. That's what they were doing when they were doing their homework, and then they'd be applying on the weekends and whatnot, right? So writing their essays and all of that. So I think the navigating that college application and decision making process for anybody, for them, for the parents, for the families, it's not for the faint of heart, right? It requires discipline, it requires patience, it requires understanding. And the thing is, it's not just for the students, it's for the parents and for the senior. So you want to come out on the other side without losing your sanity, and you want to come out the other side with your relationship with your teen intact, right? That's the goal. And then you make the decision, or they make the decision, or whatever it is. And a lot of families were really struggling with that. They were not sure where they can jump in, where they should jump in, where they shouldn't jump in and help. But here's what I kept seeing. A lot of the families were treating this process, the entire process really, like it was happening to them instead of for them.
Ah,
And I
interesting.
think there's a very clear distinction. And yes, the application process is really hard. It's thorough. It's also a great way for students to do a lot of self-reflection and understand what they're really good at and where they want to see their lives going. And the more they get into that, the more they see that. I remember Grisha telling me the second when she was applying and she had sent in several applications, and she said, having gone through this, and she said it on her own volition, she said, having gone through this, I just never sat down and thought about how many things I have done or how many things I want to do or where I want to go until I sat down and did this. And so there's a lot of good that can come from this. And it comes with a level of being self-aware of how you are as a parent and as a child managing this process, right? So oftentimes what I saw was a lot of parents were stressed out. They were making it about them. It was, like I said, it was happening to them and to their families, and as opposed to for them. And um, instead of treating it like a chore that people had to endure, having a positive attitude towards that and the mindset, I think would have made a difference for a lot of people. And that's not something you get to do again and again and again. Once your child goes through that process, right, you may have other children, but boy, every child is different. My goodness, every child is different. Their process is different, everything, right? So, what exactly is the parent's role? And that's what inspired me to think about this and offering it at SAM, right? Because we're the ones that have to maintain that mindset. The student is not always going to be able to. They are so in it, and they're going to get frustrated. They're going to catastrophize. They're going to experience imposter syndrome. The role is really to help catch them and then challenge them and then change that thought process. So when they start to spiral, they're going to start thinking about all these negative things. So helping them understand that, recognize that that's what's happening, that they're going, that mind frame, that mindset is coming. So acknowledging it and then challenging what they're actually thinking about themselves. Is that really true? Is it really a fact that, whatever it is that limiting belief is? And then guiding them towards a kinder, more balanced thought. Like, just because I didn't get into my first choice doesn't mean my college career is over. And a lot of students think like that. But instead, it's, who knows what other opportunities are waiting for me? It's that fixed mindset versus growth mindset piece of it also. So they may, another way to reframe that is, I still have a lot of schools that I'm going to hear from. Let's see where I land elsewhere, right? But if the parent then catastrophizes with them, it's not helpful. So staying organized, very important. But the emotional side of things is where I think parents, nobody teaches you how to do this. And
Right.
you do a lot of your own anxieties, you do bring that into your conversations. And it's really important not to do that for everybody, for yourself as well.
Also, just expectations and, the achievement that we attach to our children and their accomplishments, right? And what that says and how that reflects upon us. And so it's all coming together in this kind of crazy 9 months, right?
It is a crazy 9 months. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's high stress, right? And the kids, they want to explore and do dances and hang out with their friends and drive, all the things, and and there's a tension there with the parents and mom in particular in a lot of instances, and
Oh,
just being able to provide some calm, a framework and an approach in managing this moment. I want to talk to you, or I want to turn to kind of some of your experience in working with really high achieving executive women. So you teach them how to clarify their goals, delegate, build systems, work with teams, inspire. How do those skills directly translate to a session like this on Sam?
yeah, it's actually very, very closely connected. When I work with executive clients, it's exactly what you said, right? We're looking at core competencies like clarifying goals or strategic delegation or building systems that are going to help make them successful. And senior year is essentially the same process. It just has a lot of other emotional stakes along with it, right? So, in terms of clarifying goals, I might in executive coaching, I help leaders to get really crystal clear on what success actually looks like for their role, right? What does it look like for them? What does it look like for their team? What does it look like for their organization? It's not what they think it should look like based on external pressures. But in
Hmm.
the college application process, like you said, a lot of that is what is brought in, right?
Yep.
So with the moms, we have to get really clear on what success looks like for your family and your child and your values, not what you're seeing on social media or hearing from other parents, which sometimes happens. Actually, it happens more with parents who don't have seniors. Anybody who's been through this process knows, do not ask that question. Do not ask the students, do not ask the parents. But it's not that it never comes up. Absolutely, it comes up. So just being able to manage that. And then in terms of delegation, high performing leaders, they struggle to let go also. They struggle to let go of control, even if delegation would be more effective for them. And they may understand that intellectually, but they struggle with that. And so with senior year, delegation is about stepping back and letting your teen own their essays, their interviews, their choices. Even if you know that you could do it better or faster, or you have all of this input that you want to give them, you're the parent, first of all, they're less likely to hear it from you, and you don't want it to backfire, right? So really, I think if you implement certain systems, I think that's what helps to reduce some of the anxiety around what needs to get done, and also decision fatigue. And it when you have certain systems, it helps to create at least somewhat of predictable outcomes through the process, not necessarily the result, but the process, right? So this translates into trying to prevent crisis conversations and then tracking how some of that is, so you also understand how your child is going to respond in many of the ways, right? That it's a learning process for everybody. Um, and what you want to do is you want to hold everybody accountable for whatever their job is, whatever their role is, without creating stress. So instead of asking every day, for example, how's that essay coming? Did you finish the essay?
Oh
That
boy.
might get your
Yeah.
child to get defensive, right? So
Yeah.
instead, creating weekly strategy sessions and clear agendas as to what needs to get done that week and how can I support you. And okay, as the mom, my role is I'm going to make sure that you're eating well, that you're sleeping well, that you have the resources that you need, right? So deciding together what mom's role is going to be and what the child's role is going to be, and then holding each other accountable to that. But then everyone kind of knows what to expect.
Right. Right. And I just love that. I think that's so brilliant how you can leverage those skills that we see in like the highest levels of the C-suite, and you can bring that into your home suite, right? And use all of that knowledge and that process to manage this very challenging time, not only in your life, but in your family's life and in your children's life. Um, so it's just I think it's and we always focus so much on the teen, right? There's a lot of support for getting the teen into school and finding the right schools and the SAT tutors and all of this stuff. But like, really, it's the mom who also needs some guidance and support because we're the ones who are holding it all together.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And if we don't have it held together, the more we don't have it together, the more we distance our child. And that is not what you want for their senior year, right? This is it's again, it's a transformational change for the family, really. So it's going to be different going forward. So you want to be able to, that's the most important thing is keeping that family unit intact. And the mom's role is a big part of that.
Big part and sanity, right? And the support of the woman, the mom in that moment too. So before we wrap up, let's say I want to book a session with you, senior year success, and I want to spend an hour and talk through what my plan could be, my strategy could be for the next 9 months for my senior. What do I walk away with at the end of that session?
Yeah, I think what we, let me start that again.
So let's say that I want to go and book a senior year success session with you on Sam and map out what the next 9 months of my life look like preparing my senior for college. What can I expect to walk away with from that session with you?
We would probably start with a temperature check. We talk about how things are going so far, how confident they feel about their teen's college process today. And at the same scale, look at how connected they feel in terms of their relationship with their teen, because I think those two factors are probably going to be the most important to start with. And we'll look at what is causing the anxiety. We'll probably understand what figuring out at least big picture, because when you want to have these strategy sessions with your children, you want to have a sense of where you want that to go, even though you're going to be making the decisions together. So, what is your responsibility versus things that you've unconsciously taken that really aren't your responsibility, or things that you're worried about that really nobody can control, right? So talking through a lot of those anxieties that come with that and walking away really with how to manage relationships, how to manage time and energy, but not micromanage, and really cater to what specifically works for your family. If there are times that parents are still driving their kids to school, depending on how old they are, whether they have their license or not. So is the right time to talk to them early in the morning, or is it at dinner time? Or is it when you're picking them up? Right. So things like that, just understanding what each student's or each mom's norm is for their children's really schedule, that will help a lot too, because then you're using your energy and then your student's energy, your
That's
child's energy at the best time, right? So things like that, really, it's very customized based on what works for each woman. But when you walk away, you're going to walk away with a pretty solid plan of how things that you can do to help make things easier. So just resources, but then also how to talk to your children about how this is going to look for the next 9 months and what's important to you and what's important to them, and having those engaging conversations, which I think the earlier you have, the better.
and no better expert than one who's been through it. Not once, but twice.
Twice.
Twice. Okay, everyone. That's Raina. Thank you so much for the conversation here today. You can book a senior year success support session with Raina on the SAM platform. And stay tuned for our next conversation with more of our wonderful experts. Raina, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Abby. Great to see you.
Good to see you.